Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mar Project. Marchua here, and yes, I said evening because these are my pajamas. It is almost 10 p.m. as I filmed this, but I figured why not tell you guys a bedtime story? Because today, this is another episode of Peaches Reviews Pages, the vlog tie-in version of my official book blog called Peach Pink Pages. So if you're new here, welcome. But if you've been watching my videos for a while now, welcome back. So this is another episode of Mars Finds. So last episode, I decided to start a new sub-series for my book blog called Mars Finds. And it is a series wherein I will be tackling books I found in the most random places, be it places like my dad's office, or a left behind stall, or even a free book box, especially the free book boxes, which I always take advantage of. I've been doing that since last year. So yes, this is the second episode of Mars Finds, and today we're tackling something I found in a book box while out with a friend last time called Nobody is Ever Missing. So this is by Catherine Lacey, and this was a really good book that I decided to tackle because it reminded me of another novel I read before. So let's get started. I will be reading the script again for this video. But before I start, just wanted to give you guys a content warning. So this book will contain mental health illnesses, implied abuse, and suicide or suicidal thoughts and themes. There are moments in life where we just want to disappear, either to never be found and start a new life somewhere else, or just forget about the existence of others for a while. In Catherine Lacey's 2014 debut novel, Nobody is Ever Missing, it explores the mind of its protagonist, Elyria, I hope I pronounced her name right, Elyria Marcus, as she runs away from home. The moment I found out about this book's plot, it reminded me similarly of Celeste Nung's Everything I Never Told You. Both main characters, Lydia from Celeste Nung's book and Elyria Marcus, mysteriously disappear, and family and relatives around them go searching for them and the reasons as to why they've run away from home. So, except spoiler alert, in Catherine Lacey's novel, nobody really goes looking for her, and I will get to that later. In Nung's book, which I also tackled a few years back, in 2023 particularly, the story follows a multi-perspective, omnipresent narrator who dives into the thoughts and actions of Lydia's family. In Lacey's novel, the story relies purely on Elyria's perspective. What I particularly enjoyed about this book is how, instead of using quotation marks, Lacey used an italicized style. This makes Elyria's narrative more unique as she remembers thoughts in her own way, rather than the story's timeline's way. After all, we always remember conversations differently compared to how the other person does. Oftentimes, Elyria talks in this messy run-on sentence format where there just seems to be a lot happening in her mind, which further adds to the complexity of her character. The story goes on as follows. Elyria escapes her messy life in Manhattan, New York, all the way to the other side of the world in New Zealand. There, she tries to piece her life back together while also understanding her own downward spiral of thoughts. She tests her luck and gets herself into all kinds of crazy adventures while in New Zealand. She gets into ride with strangers, sleeps at random inns, and befriends strangers all around her, without having to be judged for when she shares her story. As the book goes on, we, the readers, find ourselves asking, why did Elyria escape her life at home? While she seemed to have a good life in New York, it felt incomplete for her. While having found the love of her life in her husband, she still feels lonely. She is haunted by the death of her adopted sister, Ruby, who was also her best friend. Without Ruby, Elyria feels lost and alone. Her mind is an inner turmoil filled with rage, and at the end of the day, she is still just a rat in a cage. I was gonna sing it, but I really like that song, by the way, Smashing Pumpkins version especially. Throughout Elyria's journey of self-discovery and recovery, she takes on risks by delving deeper and deeper into danger each chance she gets. This, in turn, ends up being her way to cope with the loss and instability of her mind and her feelings. Some of us have different ways to cope with what we feel. For example, when I'm in a bad mood, I take out my emotions by writing songs or poems, or even writing in my journal. Reading also happens to be a form of escapism. It reminds me of when I made a speech once in an English class about why it's important for us to read and to expound the boundless limits of our imagination. Got a good grade in that, by the way. I convinced a bunch of 9th graders, I was in 11th grade, why they should read more books, and suddenly a week later, a bunch of these ninth graders came up to me saying thank you, because we had to present for an English class in front of another class, not aside from our own, and usually these are like the lower level classes. So we had to present to like 8th graders, 9th graders. This also revealed halfway in the book that another reason for Elyria escaping her marriage is because it's implied he may be an abusive, if not neglectful partner. She reveals in chapter 23 that through episodes of night terrors, Elyria wakes up to her husband unconsciously choking her. She'd have to hit him or attack him in return just to wake him up. As she shares more about her marriage with him, we'll learn what kind of man he is. So I may as well read like a passage from this book about how the night terrors usually happen. In the early months, the night terrors just made sleeping a kind of roulette, and there was something perversely satisfying about waking up to his afraid screaming, when life seemed more like a soap opera and less like a life. But that was before the choking began. Before the nights, his hands would creep across my collarbone and tighten around my neck, and though it usually only took a small few hits to his chest or face to make him stop, a few nights I had to hit him harder than what seemed safe. And though he never shut my trachea long enough for me to pass out, he sometimes came close, pressing down for a moment, a wink in my throat. When he slipped out of a terror, eyes still shut and jaw slack, he'd fall limp back to his side of the bed, and sometimes he'd go immediately back to sleep. And on those nights, I'd never get out of bed, shaking with adrenaline, and go to the living room couch with my neck bent against the armrest. Chin on chest, mind on husband, eyes on window, waiting for some kind of sign, and some kind of evidence, some kind of kindness or understanding to tell me, "Self, it is all fine and okay. Close your eyes, tomorrow it will all be fine." But I have never been the kind to keep a backstock of that kind of kindness, the way that other people do, taking care of themselves and others, being ready to forgive. Other nights, my husband would stay awake and we'd play out the same script. Did it happen? Yes. "Ellie, oh my god, Ellie, I'm so sorry, Elyria." And he'd wrap over me and my throat would feel rug burned where he'd twisted the skin. "Ellie, talk to me." But what was there to talk about? What could I say? I had seen how a corner of my husband wanted to stop all the air in me. So it's very dark and also very distressing and depressing. Over 10 years older than her, Elyria's unnamed husband, initially unnamed, we'll find out his name later, was Ruby's former professor. It was a cause for concern when Elyria seemingly got involved with him, especially after her sister's death. As the relationship between these three was explored, I found myself wondering, was Ruby's professor a means of escape for Elyria? Or was marrying him what made her grieve her sister more? Ruby was more talented and hardworking. Her professor praised her greatly, but her passing was what allowed him and Elyria to grow closer as they both mourned her together. Since I mentioned Ruby was adopted, we also get a flashback scene where she introduces Elyria to her host mother, Nina, as we read previously of what Ruby's home life may have been like, until Elyria finds out about how Ruby died through suicide. Ruby was the only person Elyria could rely on. Even so, their shared mother was neglectful enough and always drunk on the spot, never really looking after them. So sisters could only have each other when the world seemed to be against them. The title of this book seems to hit harder than it did before. Ruby has left this world, but her spirit and the life she built on Earth and with Elyria will never be erased. When Elyria runs away from her life in New York, people close to her would start putting up missing posters of her, but she's lost everyone close to her. Instead, her husband tries to go after her, only for Elyria to actively avoid him. Nobody is ever missing, which is the title of the book. Ruby, in a sense, was never gone, and Elyria would only disappear for so long. In New Zealand, Elyria ends up on a farm and befriends an old man named Werner. Here, she seems to be at peace with herself and her thoughts, unlike the times when she was with her husband and wished to have unleashed her explosive nature onto him. So this next part is from an article I read. I'll be posting the links in the description below as well as in the official blog post. She entertains no intellectual, sexual, philosophical, or psychological interest in the older poet, which is Werner. His casual offers seeded her decision to leave, and in his presence, she achieves a sustainable form of stasis, or stasis? Elyria's elemental sadness weighs so heavily that he finally asks her to remove herself from his presence because she kept grieving and being a little bit depressing, so he was like, "I'm sick of this negativity, get out of here." Here, despite being warned by strangers not to get herself in trouble with them, Elyria somehow found a proper escape. After being kicked out from Werner's farm, Elyria starts to sleep on benches or hide near or beside trash cans without having any proper places to stay. Elyria is almost at the point of her downfall, knowing life is hard, and with her age of 22, if I'm not mistaken, adulting is a battle. With her choice to flee her home, Elyria learns that it is a difficult world to live in. So this article, another article by Huffstutter, analyzes Elyria's character more, discussing that Ellie, her nickname, often feels like she's still too young to properly experience life. Growing up, her life was not ideal, and she admits to being intimidated by her professor husband. Elyria's inability to settle into the adult world is largely bred by her unwillingness to say what's on her mind, as Huffstutter wrote. And here's a quote from the book. What I meant was I knew I had to do something that I didn't know how to do, which was leaving the adult way, the grown-up way, stating the problem, filling out the paperwork, doing all these adult things. But I knew I wasn't the whole problem. That I didn't just want a divorce from my husband, but a divorce from everything, to divorce my own history. Elyria just wanted to feel free again and experience life in the way she deserves to. And until she can fully process Ruby's death, Elyria will continue to feel lost, especially when she makes her way back into New York via ferry. There, Elyria must make a decision between returning to the empty life she has been living or facing the music and regaining her strength to keep going. She starts seeing a psychiatrist and is administered a series of tests. In the 35th chapter of the book, near the end of the novel, her husband's name is finally revealed, which is Charles Riley. Kinda sounds like the name of a supervillain. Elyria Marcus Riley battles her constant violent thoughts about the man she has constantly referred to in her narration simply as husband or the/my husband. In chapter 31, she talks as if she were speaking to him and not us, the readers. In a long, unformatted paragraph, she writes about what she wishes she could have done better for him or with him, and how she simply wanted to live a normal married life. So since you are watching, hopefully you're still staying here. In the video version, I will be reading out loud the passages or the whole chapter of 31, which is just 4 pages long, but still it's going to be a long ride, so stick with me. I want to watch that video you showed me once of the twin babies saying the same syllable to each other over and over and over. I want to watch that because we both know that's all life is really. That's all it is. We're all twins and clones and remakes of each other. We're all pairs unpaired. We're all speaking the same repeated syllable at each other. And why is it that I have to go running off into a twinless solitude? What is inside the solitude but me saying the same syllable to myself over and over and over, trying to make sense of it, trying to arrange it? Husband, if I was actually speaking to you, I'd tell you about that baby Grand Emperor penguin who swam 2,000 miles accidentally and ended up on a beach near Wellington. A long accident, a wrong turn. They said he ate sand and driftwood for lack of knowing what to eat, where he was, what he needed, why he'd swum 2,000 miles away from the other penguins, but I'm still wondering about the months he spent swimming alone. Maybe sharks swam past him. Maybe schools of tiny white fish leaped at his feet, grew disinterested, swam on. Maybe gray whales rose beneath his tininess, a single bulging whale eye as large as his head as he swam through the blue daytime ocean and the navy storming ocean, and a cold black ocean under moon, or half moon, or no moon at all. And each night above him, a different moon was there, and the moon's slow wink was all for him, for his solitude, for his perseverance, for the constant plane of water, and no one who loved him, and nothing he knew, and no other to swim with at all. What was he but a pair of unpaired, living away from the other penguins' cold huddle? Enough with my ridiculous metaphor. Maybe it is time for me to be clear, or let me be clearer than I have yet been. I didn't leave you to become someone else's something, someone else's twin to talk to, someone else's clone to mirror, someone else's anything. It was not that kind of leaving. I am not that kind of gone. I am gone, but not so gone that there is no possibility of me coming back. Though maybe I have gone out far enough now that you are preparing for a future without this particular wife. So, husband, if it is so, please keep in mind that you're still legally obligated to me, written like a law into my life, and we can remove ourselves from each other so easily, with such impulse, or at least this is somewhat true. I, you should know, left without a particular reason, though I may have a few non-particular reasons. Unnameable feelings and unnameable secrets and ununderstandable feelings. Feelings about secrets and feelings about facts and feelings about feelings. And since They're all ununderstandable. Can we call them understandable feelings? What was it that we grew to understand each other? Where did that understanding come from? And why couldn't we pry ourselves away from it? And why were we never together anymore, just alone in each other's vicinity? And is there any possibility that we could become, again, the kind of people who have a future instead of just a past? And could we reach some kind of clearing in that future, some grassy patch of many years from now where we're just fine, being just fine? Maybe we'd decide to get a dog or a child or a good bottle of wine, and maybe we'll sit at a sidewalk cafe sipping our lack of responsibilities, watching mothers bumble by lugging their children and babies and unhelpful dogs, all the weight and moan of their decisions hanging on them, and always asking for more, to be fed, to be watched, to be loved. And if we must be either children people or dog people, I will say that it makes me feel the least unwell to believe that we could become dog people, not children people, in that distant patch of grassy future. Because I believe we can follow the simple, repeated emotion of a dog, the predictable needs of a dog, the gentle forgetfulness of a dog. And you may have wanted children in the past, and you may have wanted to want children in the past, and maybe you only wanted to want, but disguise that wanting to want a simple wanting, and perhaps I just wanted children, but couldn't manage to admit it as anything other than a wanting of a one, because I feared the burden of a plain one, the frightening possibility of a desire that would not necessarily be met, or the possibility of that desire being met unpeacefully. But no matter now, that was some fork in the hypothetical road we didn't take, and now we can stay here in this unwanting, this past our timeless, this future, and this disintegrating idea of the past. I am still sometimes hopeful that I could try someday to generate a desire to raise a dog, to meet the repeated needs of a dog, the simple dogness of dogs, all the qualities of dogs that they do not share with babies, those pre-people, and all their warm, slimy wanting and their embarrassingly exaggerated needs, their screaming red-faced hunger and their bloody murder nap needing, and how those needs are just the same as ours, only magnified and reflected back at us. And do you know what? Some people are not the kind of people who can stand those kinds of things, magnified and reflected things, warm, slimy, needing, tiny people things. Some people just prefer dogs. Husband, I know as well as you that all my metaphors have turned bizarre, but what I need to say, there is a future and I am in it. There may be a tomorrow when I might come home, and maybe it won't be too late for me to become the kind of woman who doesn't feel her life is irrevocably complicated. And maybe I can slowly forget what happened to my brain, where it went, and why I couldn't find it. And why I couldn't find it either. But if I never come home, husband, please know I still have many of the same senses of belonging to you. I still have a little ring around my brain like a diamond one, or a Saturn one, or the kind that bathwater leads. I am still asking you, I know, to suffer, to stand very still and feel as little as possible. That was a lot to read. I was not expecting to talk for that long. Throughout her psychological evaluations, it becomes difficult for her to admit of the potential abuse her husband Charles has been putting her through. She refuses to answer any questions evaluators and nurses would lay out for her about the relationship, overall refusing to open up about the truth of their marriage. When her evaluator, Thomas, then asks her if she has ever considered suicide because of these implications, she has furthermore remained silent and is reminded of Ruby. In a way, throughout the stories Elyria has left us with, I have had the gut feeling that Elyria's mind is beyond troubled. Last September, I watched and finished a K-drama series on Netflix called Daily Dose of Sunshine. This show tackles various forms of mental health and mental illnesses as Nurse Jung Da-yoon, played by Park Bo-young, navigates through Myeongshin University Hospital psychiatric ward when she is assigned there. Of course, the ever so cute and amazing Ro Jae-won also starred in there as the sweetie patient Kim Se-won, who suffers from bipolar disorder and experiences delusions. That TV show broke me. I won't be revealing full spoilers ahead, but let's just say Dayun loses somebody close to her, through suicide. She goes through another similar episodes of isolation and depressive episodes, the same way Elyria does in Nobody is Ever Missing. Reading this book reminded me of that K-drama and how mental health in the media requires more thoughtful and careful representation. The actors in the show were fully able to play their characters and their respective mental illnesses as well. As Dayun overcomes her battle as a nurse with depression, she is fully able to move on from the loss she has faced in the past and continue on with her life. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said yet about Elyria Marcus. The ending remains ambiguous in the book, with her implied to be admitted in a psychiatric ward. Like Dayun, she is isolated more and dreams of a better life for herself. The story closes with Elyria imagining a scenario where she tries to relax in a coffee shop away from the world as a barista named Belinda, I don't know why she thought of that particular name, serves her coffee. I feel like Lacey wanted to write out an ending that isn't happy, unlike the ending of Daily Dose of Sunshine, because she wanted to show us, readers, that some battles do not end happily. While we haven't fully written out the end in our own battle, it is a story meant to continue. But in the author's case, the ending is left as to really showcase the nature of Elyria's troubled mind. Even if she was found in the end slowly being given the treatment she so desperately needed since the start of the book, she still feels lost on the inside. Nobody is ever missing, but for Elyria, missing is an understatement. Well then, that concludes my review and the yapping session of this book. Before I conclude this entry though, I'd like to share with you some more quotes from the book. Since this post is already long, I will just write down the page numbers. But if you're watching this video version, which I hope you're still here, again I am so sorry for the long yapping, you'll get to hear me read them out loud. Isn't everyone on the planet, or at least everyone on the planet called me, stuck between the two impulses of wanting to walk away like it never happened and wanting to be a good person in love, loving, being loved, making sense just fine? I want to be that person, part of a respectable people, but I also want nothing to do with being people, because to be people is to be breakable. To know that your breaking is coming any day now, and maybe not even any day, but this day, this moment, right now. A plane could fall out of the sky and crush you, or the building you're in could just crumble and kill you, or kill the someone you love. And to love someone is to know that one day you'll have to watch them break, unless you do first. And to love someone means you will certainly lose that love to something slow like boredom, or festering hate, or something fast like a car wreck or a freak accident, or flesh-eating bacteria, and who knows where it came from. That flesh-eating bacteria, he was such a nice-looking fellow. It is such a shame, and your wildebeest, everyone's wildebeest, just wants to get it over with. Can't bear the tension of walking around the world as if we're always going to be walking around the world, because we're not. Because here comes a cancer, an illness, a voice in your head that wants to jump out a window, a person with a gun, a freak accident, a worldwide flesh-eating bacterial that would start with your face. Jesus Christ, she talks so morbidly. Anyone else relate? I hope not. Being alone was what I wanted. Being alone was not what I wanted. I didn't want to want anything. I wanted to want everything. I wanted to want a regular life, the usual husband, the usual apartment, the usual street, sidewalks, noises, so on. But I had left it. I had gone somewhere. That was the right decision, I believed. Except when I didn't, which was both often and rarely. After I had deleted my history on Amos's computer, I realized that even if no one ever found me, and even if I lived out the rest of my life here, always missing, forever missing person to other people, I could never be missing to myself. I could never delete my own history, and I would always know exactly where I was and where I had been, and I would never wake up not being who I was, and it didn't matter how much or how little I thought I understood the mess of myself. Because I would never, no matter what I did, be missing to myself. And that was what I had wanted all this time, to go fully missing. But I would never be able to go fully missing. Nobody's missing like that. No one has ever had the luxury, and no one ever will. It doesn't seem like much now, but realizations rarely do, I suppose. Those bright moments when you can finally see something that had been there all along. There wasn't a commodifiable realization. The kind of thing in college essays or inspirational books or the hardbound journals of gentle ladies. There was no no relaxation or humor folded into this realization. There was just something real in my head. A risky boat in a sea where there was no one left to save. This book was pretty dark, despite the sometimes humorous encounters and narrations by Elyria, because her mind is so random. It's like you're not just reading from a diary, but it's like you're reading her entire mind. While she remained missing throughout the book, this was just the book that I had found inside of a book box, while with a friend 2 weeks ago, as I said. This is how I can justify that this book was never missing at all, because I found it. So, you guys get the punchline. Please laugh. This book was never missing at all. It was just waiting to be found. See you in the next entry of Mars Finds. So this was Mar 2 of the Mar Project of Peaches Reviews pages. I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. Sorry if it was a bit longer than my other episodes. Hopefully it's not as long as the Crime and Punishment yapping session. But yes, that concludes the book review. See you guys in the next episode. Bye guys! Figured I'd show you guys the shelf or the section of my library where I kept the book, where I kept the nobody's ever found book. So there's a space here. This is where I put the book. This is actually my favorite books section. So these are all of the books that I've greatly gone to enjoy. There's stuff like, of course, this is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Nung, which I mentioned earlier. Yu Jung Jung's The Good Son, which I did a book review on. The Handmaid's Tale, No Longer Human, The Midnight Library, of course, which I've also done a book review on. So if you guys haven't seen the other videos or the other blog posts, just check them out on my channel. There's also Clara and the Sun, and this one has a long title, but it's called The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. Also a really good book. So yeah, that is the favorite section of my library.